Hey everyone, hope you're well, and welcome to Riff Battle 1980. Now, it's been a few months since I put one of these videos together. Apologies for that, but we're back at it, obviously. Now, with that said, this was far and away the easiest list yet that I've had to put together in this series of videos. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. There were just loads of great classic rock guitar riffs from the year 1980. But before we dig into this particular year, let's quickly back up here just a bit for the uninitiated. What we're doing here is learning, having a playthrough, about a minute or so from each track, of the 10 greatest guitar riffs from each year in classic rock history. And then you guys can drop a vote for your favorites down below in the comments section. Simple, fun. Plus I get to learn loads of cool guitar riffs in the process. And then, in a few weeks, when we have a look at the following year, we'll pick our winner from the year in question. In this case, the year 1980, of course. So then, we're now completely through the 70s in this series as of a few months ago, and ready to forge on into the riff-filled hard rock 80s. So it should come as no surprise that this list of 1980 picks is pretty heavy on the hard rock and metal side of things, as it was around this point in time that rock and metal were having a major breakthrough into the mainstream. Regardless, before we get started with 1980, we need to go back to my previous riff battle video from 1979 and choose a winner. So let's get on that right now. Right then, the winner of Riff Battle 1979 is, wait for it, I pretty much knew that Eddie Van Halen was going to take this one with Dance the Night Away. So this result wasn't much of a surprise. But what was a surprise was that Bad Penny by Rory Gallagher almost beat it. Alas, just fell a few votes short. Third place, if you're interested, went to Run Like Hell from The Wall with David Gilmour and Pink Floyd. All right then, let's get started with Riff Battle 1980 and contender number 1. If you're an electric guitar player, especially a rock guitar player, you've played this riff. Simple as that. It's one of those coming of age as a guitar player riffs. Now, the usual course of events as a beginner guitarist is you get your cowboy chords down first, and then you get a few power chords under your belt, and then it's time to get those fingers moving just a little bit more. So what do you learn next to do just that? Well, you learn this riff if you're like 95% of other guitar players out there. So then, what is this uber famous, often covered, and often copied guitar riff that I speak of? Well, I'm going to play it for you right now. Let's check it out. then, contender number 2 is my dark horse pick of the bunch, and one of my personal favorite guitar riffs of all time. It's also the first of 3 riffs on this list by my fellow Canadian guitarists. That said, the other 2 Canadian riffs have a solid and rightful place here amongst the greatest riffs of 1980. But this one I like a hell of a lot, and it is much less well known than all the others. But it seriously kicks ass, is fun as hell to play, and by including it, we're going to give my very talented countryman Pat Travers some love and attention. This is the aforementioned Pat Travers and his very cool opening riff to the very cleverly titled track, Snortin' Whiskey, Drinkin' Cocaine.
Snortin' whiskey, drink cocaine. Been snortin' whiskey and drink cocaine. Got this feeling, gonna drive that girl insane. Like a bad rumor, baby. You're all over town. You're like a bad rumor, baby. You're all over town.
Onward to contender number 3. Let's stay in Canada for the time being, shall we? With a riff that is just a tad more famous than what we just played previously by Pat Travers. This guy has been on nearly every one of my lists since the 1974 list, the year that his band released their debut album. And with very good reason. He composes stellar guitar riffs. Some would argue that he's the most underrated rock guitarist of all time, and I will not argue with that point. That very well may be due to the fact that he's a member of one of the most polarizing rock bands of all time. You either love them dearly or you flat out can't listen to them. Usually because of one particular reason, but we won't get into that right now. I personally love them dearly and have since I was a kid, and that band is Rush, and that guitarist, of course, is Alex Lifeson. This particular riff is one of his most famous and well-known, and it's from the band's 1980 offering Permanent Waves. This is the opening riff, plus a little bit more, to Alex Lifeson and Rush's Spirit of Radio. Good then, contender number 4 is from the great Eddie Van Halen. 1980 was the year of Van Halen's Women and Children first album, and like pretty much every other Van Halen album, it is just chock full of fantastic Eddie Van Halen guitar riffs. This one is arguably the heaviest guitar riff and the heaviest song that the legendary Eddie Van Halen and Van Halen ever put down on record, and it's probably my favorite overall Van Halen song, one of them, probably because it is one of their heaviest. This is contender number 4. This is Romeo Delight from the late, great Eddie Van Halen.
Special reason I must have lied, cause I ain't leaving. We're in for a very long night. Heard a vicious rumor from your mama's tongue. You a desperate woman, need a man with a gun. High crime zone in the city of lights. Baby, please, can't take it anymore. Oh, baby, please, I can't take it anymore. I'm taking whiskey to the party tonight, and I'm looking for somebody to squeeze. Looking for somebody to fight, baby, don't get uptight, baby, please.
That one is certainly a whole lot of fun to play and very challenging, but let's keep this train going with contender number 5. Simple, heavy, and classic. Easily one of the most famous metal riffs of all time. And like Crazy Train, it's another that every budding rock guitar player learns early on in their development. We are, of course, talking about Breaking the Law by British metal masters Judas Priest from their 1980 album British Steel. One of the very first riffs and tracks that I personally performed with a full band back when I was still a young lad of about 16 years old. So let's revisit this one, shall we? It felt damn good to get this one under my fingers again after all these years. This is Breaking the Law from KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, and Judas Priest. Then on to contender number 6, and we're heading back to Canada for this one with a riff every bit as heavy as Breaking the Law from a band that was nowhere near as heavy as Judas Priest. However, the opening riff to this one absolutely kills before the track eventually settles into a gentler mainstream rock groove. Amazingly, based on the demo to this track, amongst a few other eventual big hits, every record label in America turned this band down, so they reluctantly acquiesced and signed with a small Canadian label. Huge mistake on the part of the American record companies, as they were falling all over each other only a few months later when this band's Canadian release debut exploded. The band is Loverboy, the guitarist is Paul Dean, and the killer riff that I speak of is from Turn Me Loose from the band's 1980 debut album. Let's check it out. Contender number 7, and AC/DC is back again, this time with one of the most famous riffs of all. The album Back in Black was released in 1980 and is literally filled front to back with famous and classic Malcolm and Angus Young riffs. I had to pick one from the bunch, so I figured that I'd go with the title track, as I feel that this is about the most famous and recognizable of them all. But again, not by much. Hell's Bells, You Shook Me All Night Long, Have a Drink on Me, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution, all have stellar and memorable riffs. Regardless, you all know this one. Let's check it out nonetheless. This is Back in Black. Alright then, contender number 8 for Best Guitar Riff of 1980, and we have Tony Iommi and Black Sabbath back in the game once again. 1980 was the beginning of Black Sabbath 2.0, with the departure of longtime vocalist Ozzy Osbourne, who was to be replaced for a couple of albums in the early 80s by one Mr. Ronnie James Dio. Always a risk for a well-established and successful group to switch vocalists midstream, though I don't think they had much choice in the matter here, and keep that success rolling, you know. But if AC/DC could do it on Back in Black the very same year, well, so could Black Sabbath. Legendary riff master and Chief Sabbath songwriter Tony Iommi was still at the top of his game at this point in time, and with Ronnie James Dio's formidable pipes now in play, it was little wonder that the band's 1980 album Heaven and Hell was a huge success for the group. And this riff from the title track is generally considered to be one of Iommi's very best. This is the riff to Heaven and Hell, is my contender number 8. Good then, on to contender number 9 with the band who's going to be here nearly every list throughout the 80s and the 90s, if I make it that far. At least for the years that they released an album, which is every second year, I think. 1980 saw the release of their debut, and it literally changed the game as far as the genre of metal music was concerned. We are talking about Iron Maiden, of course, and the then twin guitar attack of Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, two metal riff masters of the highest order, usually in collaboration with bassist and chief songwriter Steve Harris. And this early riff and track is certainly one of their best. This is the opening to Phantom of the Opera from Dave Murray and Adrian Smith as Contender number 9. Alright then, let's finish up with Contender number 10 and more early 80s hard rock / metal. This one's not too metal. This riff could be called a twofer, I suppose. One awesome riff immediately followed by another really slick and totally different riff. The track and riffs I'm referring to are from The Zoo by the Scorpions from their 1980 release Animal Magnetism, one of my favorite rock tracks of all time. Written and composed by guitarist Rudolf Schenker, the opening to The Zoo is, in my opinion, one of the greatest melodic riff progressions of all time, and well worthy of winning this battle, if I do say so myself. Let's check out The Zoo with a bit of a playthrough. Well, that is the list. What did I miss? I'm sure I missed a few gems here and there. Because like I said, putting this list together was a rather quick and easy affair, as there were so many famous riffs pumped out in 1980. So with that said, I didn't dig too deep beyond these 10 once I had them chosen. So I'm sure that I missed a few great and stellar riffs from the year 1980. Regardless, please drop a vote down below for your favorite in the comments section. And in a few weeks, when we have a look at 1981, we'll choose a winner. Well then, I certainly hope you enjoyed that nearly as much as I enjoyed putting it all together. And if you did, please hit the like button. Drop me a subscribe if you haven't done that already. Hit that notification bell so you know when I upload something new. And, you know, all these little piddly things that help my channel to grow. It would be greatly appreciated. Regardless, I hope you're well out there in your little guitar corner of the world, wherever that may find you. And we will see you next time. Cheers.